Yo, what's going on, guys? It's G Miners here. Last night I saw a video in my feed claiming that Malfeasance was doing some pretty crazy DPS and that it was now meta. The video made Malfeasance actually look really solid, but there wasn't any DPS testing or numbers that were covered in the video, so it wasn't very clear where it ranked against other top DPS options as far as primary weapons go. So that being said, in this video we are going to compare this and the DPS that it deals to both Touch of Malice and Outbreak Prime, which are the current DPS meta options. Again, as far as primaries go, and we're going to see where it ends up. Starting out with Malfeasance, in this Lost Sector where I always test weapons just to get a baseline, we're going to be hitting for 41-45 damage per shot in the head. As many people are aware, the exotic perk for Malfeasance adds additional damage by landing successive shots. Each shot we fire is going to last 6 seconds in an enemy, and if we manage to land 5 shots in the enemy at the same time before any shot expires, all 5 are going to detonate and deal damage again. As you can see here, when they do chain explode, each shot deals another 41-45 damage. So if we land all 20 shots without any major breaks in firing, this will straight up double the damage we deal. So in one mag, this is going to go from 82.9 thousand damage with 20 shots to 165,000 damage with the detonations included. I ended up testing the time it took to deal 3 mags worth of damage to get an understanding of how good the DPS was. If you end up just testing how long it takes to shoot something like 1 mag, then your DPS value comes out extremely high because reloads and ready times aren't going to be thrown into the calculation. So for 3 mags in a well with Lunas for max reload and some hand cannon loader mods on, we ended up getting all 3 mags off in just over 23 seconds. If we multiply the 165,000 damage for a single mag by 3, this is then going to be 500,000 damage in total, which comes to around 21.4 thousand damage per second. This is extremely solid for a primary weapon DPS value, but there are going to be 2 ways to increase this that are unique to Malfeasance and only Malfeasance that I will go over after we check out both Outbreak and Touch. Next up is going to be Outbreak. I covered this and Touch of Malice in a recent video, so if you guys do want a full in-depth explanation, I will have that linked below. But Outbreak is going to deal 1409 per shot, as you can see here, and then after that, there are a metric ton of other sources that buff this thing's damage. The first perk, the Corruption Spreads, is going to spawn in nanites that deal additional damage. Landing 12 rapid hits, which is just 4 bursts in a row, is going to spawn anywhere from 2 to 4 nanites randomly. These nanites are then going to deal an additional 1993 damage to whatever you are shooting at, and then the amount of nanites attached to an enemy is also going to increase the damage of Outbreak. This second damage increase is going to be from the perk Parasitism, which increases damage by 30% for each nanite. Now this only happens for the first 5 nanites or stacks that you have applied, up to a 150% increase, and then after that, you're going to get an additional around 2%-ish per stack up to 100 stacks for a total of 450% increased damage. Now that obviously won't come into play unless you're in a fire team of 6 people, and it's also going to depend on the RNG of nanites that are spawned in per burst. The Catalyst does also increase nanite damage by 25%. In this video, I had it on already, but if you don't, you're going to hit closer to like 1600 damage per nanite rather than the 1993. With all of that laid out, depending on how many nanites you spawn in, and calculating fully with the damage increases gained from the weapon per burst and the nanite damage itself, looking at the 3 mag damage values under the best circumstances, which is going to be constant 4 nanite spawns, you're looking at around 374,000 total damage. Now this is going to take around 16 seconds for a full 3 mags, which is around 23,000 damage per second. And then under the worst circumstance, which is going to be constant 2 nanite spawns, you're looking at around 19.5 thousand damage per second. So as of right now, Malfeasance is objectively better than Outbreak short term, but long term Outbreak will definitely take over, especially with more players. And then finally, looking at Touch of Malice, which is, as most people are aware, the best DPS primary in the game right now. We are going to hit for 3,069 at base, and then with Touch of Malice procced, we now hit for double damage, which is 6138. The Blight perk, which you can also add onto enemies, counts as another 50% debuff just for Touch of Malice, so this is going to jump us up one final time to 9207 per shot. Since we are able to bypass reloads with the exotic perk, this means we are going to be dealing perfectly consistent DPS, which is huge by the way. So then at 260 rounds per minute, this will be 2.4 million damage in around 60 seconds, which is going to be just under 40,000 damage per second. Comparing this to Malfeasance, Touch of Malice is clearly a better option. However, as I mentioned, there are two ways to increase the damage of Malfeasance. First off, it is going to benefit from a 25% damage increase against all Taken enemies. So if you go up against Taken, this is going to go from 21.4 thousand DPS all the way up to 26.75 thousand damage per second. And then you can also have a teammate apply Wither Horde to an enemy. This is a weird interaction for Malfeasance and will provide another 25% increase in damage, so we again go from 26.75k to 33.4. Obviously, this still doesn't come anywhere close to Touch of Malice, and even if it did, it's going to be hyper situational because you do need both Taken enemies and then to have a teammate using Wither Horde, but that doesn't mean Malfeasance is trash. After all, it does still beat out something like Outbreak if you were to use it for a shorter primary damage phase, but most importantly, it now has intrinsic unstoppable rounds. Where this thing is going to shine the most is going to be in Grandmaster Nightfalls with Taken unstop enemies, or honestly just if you need some unstop rounds and some decent primary damage. I think you could definitely take this in as a main option for taking out unstops and even as a damage option against all other champion types. If you guys are interested in a GM build / Master Nightfall build using this as the main weapon, let me know in the comments below. I just wanted to make this video to clear some things up and make sure people are fully informed on where Malfeasance sits compared to other weapons. Definitely not going to be a meta primary DPS go-to for when you're running out of ammo or anything like that, but compared to Touch and Outbreak, I think this thing is a lot better when going up against champions. Anyways, that's all for this video, guys. As always, have a good one. Peace.